G'day folks, welcome to the final leg of our outback adventure. We're standing on the banks of the Paroo River in the heart of Queensland's Channel Country. We're going to follow the river south from here, back into New South Wales, and see where it leads us.
Yeah, well, it flows, oozes more likely, this river, all the way south and meets the Darling near Wilcannia, and then we'll push on to Wentworth.
Sounds like a good spot, mate. Looks like there's been some flooding through here recently.
Yeah, look, there's been, certainly further west there has been. This river's only flowed a little. I was surprised, in fact, but yeah, it'll be good further south.
Well, mate, let's get these X-classes on the track and head on down there.
Yeah, my word. Our plan is to head south, following the Paroo River for much of the way from Eulo to Hungerford. We might even stick to the less used east side of the river and go through Currawinja National Park for a short way. Once we're at the New South Wales border, we'll continue south to Wanering, where we'll spy the river again before losing it south of the Noccolichee Nature Reserve. We'll pass through the western section of the Paroo Darling National Park. Sadly, there won't be any water in the Peary Lake, so we'll cut across to the opal mining town of Whitecliffs, then head further west to a real oasis in western New South Wales, Mutawinji National Park. From Mutawinji, we'll head to Wilcannia on the Darling River, just south of where the Paroo joins it, and from there we'll cruise down the Western River Road, paralleling the stream to the Menindee Lakes and the small township of Menindee and the nearby Kitchener National Park. Staying on the west side of the Darling, we'll head to historic Bindara Homestead, which is a great camp, and then on to Wentworth, where the Darling meets the mighty Murray and our journey's end. The Paroo in Currawinja National Park and pushed on to Hungerford, the small town almost completely surrounded by the park. The town can supply the basics a traveller needs, while the Royal Mail Hotel is the heart and soul of the place. And where a few lucky roos were being fed by the locals, the drought having been so hard this year. There you go, when you're heading south into New South Wales through Hungerford, you meet our old friend the dog fence, where it runs along the New South Wales-Queensland border. We last saw it back at Cameron Corner, a couple of 100 kilometres west of here. Make sure you close it. You fate worse than death if you don't.
Hey Ron, what do you think of the X-Class on these sandy tracks?
Yeah mate, I like it, to be quite honest. Great NVH and rides pretty well, and the engine performs more than adequately, I've got to tell you.
Yeah, I've got to agree, the NVH is real nice on it. We got a bit more luxury in this one with the power model.
Yeah, well, I'm in the mid-range, aren't I? So there's one below this, the workers one.
Yeah, they call that one the progressive, and then there's the tradie spec pure below that.
I love the names.
Mate, I love driving on these sandy red desert tracks. They're just so smooth and swift.
Yeah, they're well maintained, and you can easily cruise at 80, 100k an hour and eat up the miles on these tracks.
So we're heading down toward Wanering today, yeah?
Yeah mate, and we'll cross the Paroo there again and head down to Paroo National Park, or Paroo Darling National Park, and probably camp there tonight or something like that. So yeah, that's the plan for today.
Sounds like a good plan too.
Yeah, let's knock over the miles, mate. We're in King Charlie Waterhole on the Paroo River in the Noccolici Nature Reserve. It's one of the few places that's public access, and one of the few places the actual river looks like a river instead of an oozing swamp. We're just south of Winnering. This is the country back of Burke, made famous by Henry Lawson, Will Ogilvie, Breaker Morant and Banjo Patterson. It's part of our heritage, part of our soul.
We're having Kransky sandwiches today because we couldn't get any rolls in, where were we? Winnering.
Another masterpiece.
Well,
While we stop for lunch in this patch of verdancy, Matt has some tyre tips which will come in handy when you travel out this way.
Before you bring your new four-wheel drive out into the outback, you really want to get some tyres to suit the conditions. These harsh, rocky roads, they'll tear a passenger car tyre to shreds, just rips the sidewall out of them. And you destroy more than 2 tyres in a day, you're going to get stranded somewhere. What you really need is an all-terrain tyre as a minimum. Something like these Toyo open country all-terrains, nice big tread blocks, big gaps here to throw the rocks out, heavy-duty sidewalls. This is a light truck construction tyre, great for these sort of roads. Tyres aren't cheap, so you want to look after them. Get yourself a good quality tyre pressure gauge, check the pressures regularly. When you're out here in the bush, before you leave camp each morning, just have a good look at the tyre, make sure there's no cuts in the sidewall, rocks caught in the tread, check the pressures. Look after them well. Every 10,000 k's you want to rotate your tyres front to back. Talk to your tyre dealer about it, see what he advises on that. Do these things, look after the pressures and you'll get good mileage out of your tyres and the best value for your money.
We've got another big day tomorrow, so we'll take a bit of a break before meeting up with Dick Wagner, an opal miner and local in Whitecliffs, surely one of the most iconic towns in all of outback Australia. So we've got a few opals here, which Whitecliff is famous for.
Yep.
What are we looking at here?
Well, about half of these are solids, the
Yep.
other half are doublets.
Yep.
We don't do triplets here.
Okay.
And the reason we do doublets is purely and simply because we get so much of our opal that is so beautiful,
Yeah.
but just too thin to stand on its own. So we actually have to back it so we can bulk it up a little bit to use it.
Yeah.
And we do get then a darker or deeper range of colours
Okay.
in the opal.
So, I mean, they've been mining here for a long time, haven't they?
Yep.
From when?
They first discovered, I think, 1887, 87 or 88. And with that, they didn't know what it was. And if you can imagine, the hill came over in its natural shape.
Yeah.
The opal formed in layers throughout the hill. Then the hill wore away and literally left the opal laying on the ground.
Oh, okay.
So that's how they first discovered it. It was just there on the ground. Pretty stone, didn't know what it was. So they picked it up. It took them a long time to get to Adelaide. They, one of them knew a geologist.
Yep.
And the story goes he had £150 in the bank. Now, in 1888 or about that time, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
It would have bought you a heap of houses. So basically, the guy offered him £140 for the parcel. Must have been bags and bags and bags of it. Yeah.
Out of all those holes out there, what was the peak population of Whitecliff?
Nearly 5,000 back
Wow.
in 1900. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was in its heyday.
Yep.
And they say that Whitecliffs is still the opal field that's produced the biggest tonnage of opal. And we're looking at a tray there that you've probably got $20,000 worth in a little bit like that. Could you imagine 7 tonne of it?
That's phenomenal, Dick. let's go and have a look at the mine and see where this stuff comes from.
No worries. Only too happy. I'll introduce you to Jack.
Okay, thanks, mate. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Dick, how far underground are we first? Let's get the safety things handled.
Okay, about a 36-foot floor at the moment, which is about 11 metres for new money. Yep.
And it's good earth, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the beauty things about White Cliffs and mining here is you can have huge big rooms underground, and the old miners knew that. Why it's so stable is that the opal and all that's formed with the weight of the water on the ground to like keep the ground compacted. You put an arch in it, and
it's incredible
how
stable it is.
Yeah,
I like that. How long have you been mining in Wycliffe?
Yeah, this is my 18th year.
Okay.
Yeah, so and I mine pretty much right throughout the year. Okay. There's a few days in the middle of summer that I don't mine, just looking after my gear that's on the surface, the blower and the generator and that sort of thing. But the rest of the time I come out early in the morning and spend a few hours out here. This is what we call a typical drive, where I'm just heading off in a direction looking for opal. Okay. But if I end up there, I've got a pineapple, my first after 18 years, and so I've started to bell it out, but then I've decided to come back and take the floor out, and because I did find a bit of opal back here a couple of months ago, so I'm just making sure that there may be some more there.
Man, there's a lot of holes up around here.
Well, actually, the beauty of that is they were all dug by the old miners back in the 1890s, or even maybe a tad earlier than that. Okay. But they say there's 50,000 holes. I don't know that anyone's actually sat down and counted them. But they were all dug with a pick and a shovel. Wow. You know, and they didn't have ladders. So we've just come down a ladder to get down to here. But the old timers actually had toe holes around the corner. They might have had a steady rope. But they didn't have ladders.
Tougher men than me, mate, I got to tell you. So what are we doing here?
Ron, I'm about to introduce you to Jack, your new best friend, and we're going to dig a little bit of dirt.
Okay, let's get to it, mate.
Up here, off the face.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So if I hit any opal, is it mine?
We'll discuss that. What we're looking for is the range of colours, the clarity in it, and that's what we call crystal opal, which is that clear you can look down and see all the different layers of the silica, the opal. The other thing we're looking for is size, but you don't need much of opal to make a pair of earrings.
So, Dick, once you've got a whole pile of rubble here and no opal,
yes,
what do you do?
Okay, well, this is part of the physical fitness regime. I up the ladder, onto the roof, onto the surface. I start the blower up, the big suction machine up on the roof, and that will suck all this up that pipe and up into the hopper on the roof. Okay. When we empty the hopper, it'll come into the back of the truck, and I'll go and dump that somewhere.
Meanwhile, Owen has teamed up with Brad from the Fossickers' Den to try his luck at noodling for some opal.
The reason we can find opals out here today, these holes, all these mines are basically were dug in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and back in those days the only saleable colour was red.
Oh, okay.
So if they got blues, purples, greens, anything like that, they pretty much just threw it over their shoulder and they kept digging into OPM red. So yeah, all those other colours are still worth good money nowadays. The hardest part is getting your eyes trained into what you're looking for. Once you know what a piece of opal looks like, then basically, you can't help but pick it up. Oh, look at that, looking straight at me.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, we saw that.
Yeah. There you go. First rock of the day.
In the meantime, GT has been fossicking for some old cars.
For sale. One owner, low miles. Being so far from any wrecking yards, obviously a little town like this, a lot of the cars just get abandoned. EA Holden Ute. It's obviously a bit of an early girl. It's kind of cool just sitting here as a piece of garden art. Old Holdens never die, they just go slower. That's not what I remember from the t-shirt. Bog. It's not really a Monaro or a GT, but kind of cool in a quirky way. Hey Josh, check this out. Yeah, even though it's dry out here, a lot of these cars would have been cheapies from the coast, Adelaide, Sydney or Melbourne. So yeah, they've got a lot more rust in them than you'd probably expect for a dry climate. Patina. Now the tagline for these cars back in the day was Chimera SJ, your mother will hate it. So did everybody else. Obviously where we are, it gets pretty hot in summer and there's not too many creeks or rivers around, so engines like that would have revolutionised life out here back in the 1920s or 30s. God knows the Europeans couldn't find water. Bloody terrific. It's not just old cars that are abandoned out here. This is a whole Shell service station and roadhouse, and it's yeah, I don't think we'll be buying any cake and fries here today. Well, even though we're in awesome outback country, there's simply not enough tourist traffic out here to allow a place like this to survive. I'm only here for the gasoline. Go well, go Shell. All right, well, it's time for us to fuel up and get back out on the open road. We've had a great time cruising around White Cliffs here in Western New South Wales this morning, having a look at some cool old classic cars.
From our adventures in White Cliffs, we headed by dusty roads west to Menindee National Park, one of the best destinations in Western New South Wales and one of the most significant places in the whole area for the local Aboriginal people. It's getting late, the sun is low, the wildlife is starting to move around after a warm day. What better time to talk about lights and what you need out here than now? Over to you, Matt.
LED driving lights are nothing new, but they're still something everyone wants to get on the front of their four-wheel drive or truck. The thing about them is they're always evolving. There's new technology coming in all the time. And Great Whites has been here for more than 5 years now, and they're always updating and improving their products. The latest evolution is the attack range of Great White lights. They come in 2 different round sizes and 5 different light bars. Great Whites use clever design of the reflector along with Cree LED lights to give us the most efficient product in a small package. As part of that design, you've got a backlight there that comes on when your parkers are on, and then you've got the bright full power punch for driving down the road. Let's see how they look out in the bush.
We're in Winsy National Park, about 150 kilometres southwest of Whitecliffs. It's a phenomenal place, an oasis in an otherwise arid environment. Tucked in amongst these ranges, there's beautiful waterholes and rocky gorges and rocky glens that sustain a lot of wildlife and beautiful vegetation. It was hugely important for the local Aboriginal people, and it still is today. White people first came to this area in about the 1860s. William Wright, who became the leader of the supply party for Burke and Wills, bumbling Burke, we're back on his tracks again. He came here in 1859, put his blaze up here on the walls of the cliff, and another one in 1862. After that, people came here to use the permanent supply of water and the shelter these gorges and glens provided. It was a magic spot. Far more important to the Aboriginal people though, and it's become a national park and is run and managed by them today. It's a fabulous place, somewhere you should go and enjoy. There's some great walks to experience. We're back on the road again, heading to civilisation and the small town of Wilcannia. Wilcannia has often had a bad rap, but is working hard to improve that image, and it's working. I've been coming here for 20 years or more, and it's a lot better than it used to be. For the passing traveller, the town has some great old buildings to admire, and even a decent place to get a coffee these days. Well, we've arrived on the Darling River, just downstream from where the Paroo joins it when it comes down in major flood. We're at the historic port of Wilcannia, once one of the most important paddle steamer ports on the whole Murray-Darling system. Now, you'd be flat out floating a matchbox on the waterway. It's a sad sight, and you can see why the locals are so angry about what is going on this river. I guess we can't do much. We're going to drive down to Menindee and the Menindee Lake scheme, where there's a bit of water still and there's a bit of water flow in the river downstream from there. We're at the main weir of the Menindee Lakes water scheme. It was built mainly to supply Broken Hill with a continuous supply of good water. It's under an awful lot of pressure today from water taken upstream. But one thing it has done is made some fabulous places to camp and some great bird watching. Let's go out and find a spot to stop for the night. The lakes have long been an important place for Aboriginal people to gather, filling as they do when the Darling River flows and floods. Europeans arrived here after Charles Sturt and his expedition passed through here in 1844, and by 1855 the lands along the river were open for pastoral settlement, and the great sheep runs that was such a hallmark of the area were begun. When full, water covers nearly 50,000 hectares, with lots of shallow areas that make this lake system a rich bird habitat, supporting up to 250,000 birds of many different species. It's a magical place. Once you get to Menindee, there's quite a choice for camping. The town has a caravan park, the nearby national park has plenty of camping options. There's Kopi Hollow, a long-time favourite, especially for Broken Hill people. I have my manservant mixing my bed. And then there's camping around Lake Pamaroo, where we threw down our swags.
People think you've got to drive halfway across the country to experience Australia's outback. Yet here we are, less than a day's drive from Sydney or Melbourne, in this spectacular spot on the lakes at Menindee. Just up there, it looks as if you're driving through the desert. And you pull in here, and you have this spectacular lake right behind you. We've had an easy drive down here from Winsy National Park today. Pulled in here right on sunset, just in time to sit back and have a cold one.
Not far from these lakes is a small settlement of Menindee itself, first settled in 1850, and where the historic Maidens Hotel still supplies a cold beer and a meal for locals and travellers alike. When Burke and his expedition arrived here in October 1860, this small community of Menindee was the absolute edge of European civilisation in Australia. Burke, being the great leader that he was, ensconced himself in the hotel, but wary of the vices of such a place, he sent his men to camp on Paroo Creek, a few kilometres out of town, well away from this place. When you're out travelling in our outback, good communications are not only nice to have, but they're a great safety factor. Matt's got the latest technology to show you. Take it away, mate.
Staying connected when you're out on the road is never easy. Phone signal strength isn't what it should be around the country, and certainly not in remote areas where we like to go in our four-wheel drives. There is a solution that can give you better phone and internet service in places that have poor telephone reception. The Cellfire unit is a phone booster. It increases the strength of the signal to give you better reception, to be able to download and upload data, use your internet and so forth. The installation in our X-Class is relying on this little magnetic antenna on the back of the roof. Let's have a look at how it works. So using the Cellfire Wave app, you can see what's going on with your Cellfire unit. It tells us down here we're on the Telstra 3G network. You can switch it over to 4G. It's also got an auto mode to pick up whatever's strongest. But we're getting a pretty weak signal here. It's only 1 bar, so it's boosting quite heavy. Right around to 7, up to 10, and that's gone green. So I'm getting a pretty good signal. And my phone tells me I'm getting 4 bars here. So it's really doing its job here. Walk 10 metres away from the car, you're not going to be getting any reception at all. Where the Cellfire unit comes in real handy is when you've got a weak signal, gives you sketchy phone calls and no data usage at all. Turn the unit on, it boosts that signal, get your data up, you can then use the internet, social media, send messages, emails, all that stuff you want to do on your computer. Makes it real handy out here in the bush or anywhere you have weak telephone signal.
Just outside town is Kitchener National Park, centred on the old historic homestead of the same name. We're heading out there to see what was the beating heart of this vast property, the massive woolshed. Kitchener National Park, just outside Menindee, is one of the most visited national parks in Western New South Wales. It's a beaut place to come to, lots of camping, lots of heritage, really good place. This building, the woolshed, was once the thriving, pulsing heart of Kitchener Station. Built in 1875, it had 62 stands. That means 62 shearers worked here at any one time, shearing up to 80,000 sheep. Huge amount of wool was produced, and that was dragged down to the Darling River, which was not far away from here, loaded onto paddle steamers and taken to Adelaide for sale. It's probably not the biggest woolshed in Australia, but it's worth visiting, that's for sure. Sheds like this point to a time when the country was being opened up by European settlement, and to a time, not so long ago, when Australians rode on the sheep back. The sheep industry, backed by buildings like this, were the backbone of the nation and the foundation of our modern, prosperous country. We pulled up for the night at the historic Menindee Station homestead, situated right on the edge of the Darling River. It's a historic spot and a magic place to camp. Back on the road again, it wasn't long before we came to the town of Wentworth, at the junction of the Murray River and the Darling.
Well, Ron, we've seen some dry, dusty riverbeds over the past couple of weeks, but it's nice to get down here and see some water.
Beautiful, isn't it? Eulo seems so far away at the moment, doesn't it?
Definitely was, mate.
We started up there and crossed the border into New South Wales, following that ephemeral stream of the Paroo, and then ducked out to White Cliffs and Winsy before we ended up at Wilcannia. The old Darling was a bit of a sad sight there, wasn't it?
Not much water there at all.
boy, oh boy.
Cooper Creek was probably the best watering hole we found.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Wilson River.
Oh,
Bloody spectacular.
now that's a classic spot.
Yeah.
Anyway, from there we sort of followed the Darling and ended up here at the junction of the Darling and the Murray Rivers behind us here. Fabulous little spot.
Yeah, nice place to finish up a good adventure.
Yeah, it is a great spot to finish a trip.
And
Good couple of good pubs too, mate.
A few good pubs along the way. And the vehicles went well along the way. The 2 Mercedes X-Class utes, no troubles at all. The gear we had along for the ride all went well, worked well. We had a good time.
Yeah, no worries, no troubles at all, and that's the way I like a trip, mate.
Definitely how we want it. Let's go and plan another one.
Yeah, good stuff.